Okay. Yeah, so now I'm
Cool.
recording. Cool. So, Dryden, thank you so much. I'm from Chile, from Ruta Rock, and of course, we are going to talk about your recent show you are going to make in Milenia Fest this Saturday.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's go back in time a little bit and remember your last visit in Chile, that it was in 2007 with POD. And what do you remember about that show?
Oh man. Just feeling kind of emotional because I, didn't know how we would be perceived, I guess. I wish that we'd done way more touring in South America than we really did because um I don't know, again, it's not South America, but my mom is from Mexico and I grew up just having Spanish in my house, and not that I don't know, my connection was, again, like, emotional, feeling like I didn't know how we would be perceived, and some of those venues having um crowds sing like real deep tracks, and like I felt like I didn't even have to sing in some of those venues, and I was like, wow, this is way
Cool.
better than I imagined.
Yeah,
It was really emotional, I would say, for me.
cool. And yeah, and also this year you performed at the Sydney World Festival in Las Vegas. And
Uh-huh.
how was that? How would you compare the South American crowd with the American crowd?
Well, for that show, I mean, it just depends, because we've had some really, really amazing US shows. I wouldn't say that was one of them, although it was cool. To me, the best part of that show was just being asked to do it. I felt like the bands on there was like an honor for us, you know what I mean? And especially to be on the main stage
Cool.
for that was really like, it just felt cool. I was very nervous. It was just really hot already.
Yeah, I heard
And
that.
so that's just, and then that early in the day, that it's not a big deal, but at the same time, you don't feel very rock and roll at 1 in the afternoon or whatever it is,
Yeah.
but, but yeah, I mean, the difference in crowds, I just have to say, for maybe it's just for us. Again, I don't want to trash US crowds because
Yeah.
we've had so many good shows here, but in Europe and in South America, um I just feel like we've had just more appreciative crowds there, and I can't say enough about South American crowds and European crowds.
Mm.
I would say that Europe is very similar to South America in the excitement for bands, and I see one thing too, more than in the US, but it's still here too, but the loyalty. If you liked a band when you were 15 in
Mm.
Europe or South America, I feel like the the desire to still see these bands lasts a lot longer than in the
Cool.
US. I feel like, okay, what's the next thing? What's the next thing?
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, I mentioned Sydney World Festival because the festival you're going to play in this Saturday in Chile is also like the same subject, gathering bands from the early 2000s. You have
Uh-huh.
Evanescence and Candlebox. So what's your opinion on these kind of festivals that gather these certain types of bands? Like they are all like similar in a time lapse, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's obviously a smart thing to do, and it's good for us. I mean, obviously, we've been part of like eclectic bills before where there's hip hop artists and stuff, and that's cool too. But I feel that when it is a tighter genre type
Mm.
show that I find it easier to like work a crowd. They
Yeah,
know what they're gonna get. And so if I'm
sure.
standing in front of um half a hip hop crowd, it's still cool. Don't get me
Yeah,
wrong, but you feel like you're kind of working for it instead of like, hey, you guys know what we're about, and that's
sure.
just the funnest to me.
Yeah. So yeah, and all about all that bands from the early 2000s. It brings memories back. So do you consider Alient and Farm like a nostalgic band?
Well, there's no other way to put it after so many years, you know. I like to think that we're just finished a new record and we're gonna push that as hard as we can, and hopefully, you know, if we have some success with that, that's great. But again, there is no other way to put it than it is nostalgic because you know, some of these people are in their, you know, in their 30s when they were in high school when
Yeah.
Anthology came out, and it's like, oh my gosh, you know, that summer, that was my summer record, or you know, and that's a cool
Yeah.
feeling too. It's a cool experience to get it a second and third time, you know what I mean? And I think that these shows like the Sick New World and stuff can actually spark so much more interest in a band that had success in the past. So I'm all for it.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds really really cool. I'm sure all the fans that are starting now are extremely happy about this festival. So
Cool, man.
yeah, talking about, you mentioned a new record coming out. I read on the internet that maybe it's called Mantras.
Yeah, it's called
cool?
Mantras.
Is that cool? What else can you tell us about the new record?
Well, we worked really, really hard on it, I think more than any other record. I spent so much time. I did all my own like editing and vocal production here at my home, and just a lot of work on Pro Tools and stuff. It was really like digging deep. I remember doing like, maybe is a little too overboard, but I would do like 50 takes, 100 takes on certain songs. And then I'd have to go back and like sift through 100 takes. I'm like, I don't even know anymore. Like these all are terrible or they're all good. Like, I don't know what to pick. So it was like, it was cool. And this is the first time where if I didn't like what I was doing, I literally would just throw it away, delete it, and I'd go back to the park all I do is just take a pen and this, and I would just go back and just start all over, you know. And that was like a scary thing for me. I'm a couple years sober now, no drinking, and I just thought, you can do better, dude. You can do better. If this is not like how you want it to be, don't just record it. Don't just put it there. Like this one is forever. This one could be there's a song called Last Dance on there. And I feel like maybe this is our last dance. You know what I mean? And so I wanted it to be special and proper and correct.
Yeah, I've heard about like, I don't know if it was like Nick Cave about mentioning like when he was like on certain types of drugs, the writing on music was better, but when he got sober, it was kind of difficult and very different. How difficult or different do you think it is?
Well, there's a lot to be said about drugs and rock and roll and youth. You know what I mean? And being young and carefree and like who gives a fuck kind of attitude, I think is very rock and roll. You know what I mean? To its core, like that whole, it almost should sound effortless in a weird way. So that a lot of times, yeah, it is difficult when I said like when my brain is sober and I'm like, want it to be so good. I'm like, how the hell when I was 23 years old doing this stuff was so basic, or not basic, but it just seemed so right and natural. So I get it, but I felt like, you know, again, like going back to the park, just doing these things, these simple things, just like pick up the acoustic, like just is this good if I just play, you know, if I just do this, you know, is it good just me and the guitar? Then I know if it's going to be great for a band to do, you know. And but yeah, it makes sense that because your head is just constantly going to play fucking tricks on you. If you're almost like a juvenile again, if you're starting for a sober mind when you're not used to it, is going to create doubt, I guess, in certain ways.
Yeah, it sounds challenging, but also we appreciate the effort. I mean, I guess all fans know that it's hard when their favorite band is going on sobriety and they have to write new material.
Yeah, I had a great time doing it, man. I felt so present and just, you know, I felt just happy to do it. And work on it. And when we were done and we delivered it to the label just a few weeks ago, and the head of the label, Missy, came back and she said, man, this record is so great. And I was like, that just made me so happy to know that like I knew I did every single thing. I spent like 200 hours just sifting through my vocals, and I just knew that I would feel bad if I was like, oh, I could have done a little bit more. I could have done this. I feel like I just did every fucking thing I possibly could and threw it at the wall, you know?
Excellent. Cool. Yeah. Going on, do you think that this new album can reach to new fans that maybe they haven't heard anything about Alien and Farm?
Maybe. I don't know what I don't know how it's going to be perceived. It's always weird to think of how this will spread in social media and radio and all the things that combine with our new label. We signed a deal with Megaforce, who's typically done a lot of heavy stuff in the past, and we've never been although we did grow up from heavy music, we were never like that active, pissed off heavy band. And there's some heavy tracks on this one. I'm glad that we did go a little more to our roots in a weird way. When Ant Farm first started, when we were kids, we were a pretty metal band, and then we met a producer, Jim Wirt, who worked with Incubus and did the Science record with Incubus. He kind of pushed us. We wrote movies for his suggestion to make like almost like a love pop song, and it felt weird to write a song like Movies. But at the same time, I remember thinking, wow, this is a great song, but it's not like metal, or you know what I mean? But I'm glad he pushed us in that way. And I'm also glad that we're kind of on this record going back to a little more of the metal vibe, you know?
Yeah, sounds really interesting. I'm really excited for it. So yeah, finishing this interview, what can you tell us about the Milenia show here in Chile, and what can you say to your Chilean fans?
Well, just I mean, I don't know. I feel like the crowd would be the whether we were there or not. They're gonna, maybe they would have been there anyways. So if some extra people came because they heard we were playing, thank you for doing that. Yeah, I'm excited. We're gonna I think I have one more interview to do after speaking with you, and then my drummer lives like 2 miles away, and we're gonna rehearse today and actually like pick some songs to make our set list. And so I'm excited to we're already starting like in an hour to figure out what we're gonna do for Milenia, you know?
Well, cool. Dryden, I wish you the best, and hope I can see you there in Chile at the show. So.
Thank you so much, bro. Come say hi if you're there. Please come say hi, give a hug, and we'll share some chats.
Sure. Very nice talking to you. Okay. Bye.
Okay, brother. Thank you.